about the present. Yeah, you had a question back there?
Yeah, speaking of prescient, were you surprised at all of the stories that have been coming out on some of the blogs lately about the government main core program and also the U.S. companies that are experimenting, if you will, in China on surveillance technologies?
Yeah, not at all. I think that command and control systems are difficult to implement. They take a lot of iterations to get to the point where you can figure out how to spin them so that people will accept them in their lives. And so people who want to roll out command and control like authoritarian systems need test beds. They need beta testers. And so the beta testers for totalitarian technology are people who don't get to answer back. So it's the people like mental patients, air travelers, prisoners, students, poor people, immigrants, people who are on social assistance, anyone who just doesn't get a say. Those people are the best people to start that stuff out on. So totally unsurprised to hear that the next phase of the war on abstract nouns is being fought in China, right? That companies like Cisco are producing internal documents that say surveillance and control in China are a major market opportunity that they need to seize. And they're using technologies that they developed for the DHS, for the War on Terror, to evince even more spectacular control systems in China. And they'll get it right there, and then they'll bring it back here. It's it's globalism. Yeah.
It seems that the UK and America have kind of had this parallel growth of surveillance. I was wondering, over the past 10 years, why has the UK just jumped so fast, and the US has stayed pretty slow?
Well, it's tough. I have my theories. I think that not being British and living in the UK has some advantages and some disadvantages. The advantage is that you're not a tree, so you might just be able to see the forest. The disadvantage is that you're not kind of inside the system, so there's some stuff that you miss. But I think that in general, Britons and people in the Commonwealth, including Canadians, have a belief that government is staffed by people of goodwill and a good deal of forethought, and are willing to devolve a lot of power. They don't see government as an adversarial relationship with the populace, and I think that that's something that's very strongly American. And there's in a different way Russian or other other systems where there's a strong mistrust of government. But it's Americans don't necessarily mistrust their government, but it's a truism built into the American political system that governments will, given half a chance, turn corrupt and septic and try to take away your rights. And so the balance of powers is established to try and stop the inevitable circumstance of government overreach. And so, for example, it's considered bad form in America, although it happens, to pass a law that everyone is probably guilty of on the grounds that the police will just use it to bust the people who they know to be guilty, right? Whereas in Britain, there's a lot of those. I actually have a friend who's a community police officer in Britain who explained to me that, of course, if you're walking down the street, you're probably in violation of some law or another that allows them to take your ID and check you out and find out more about you. And by the same token, the British police have long had a policy of, when they detain someone, even if they don't arrest them or charge them, to take their DNA and put it on file forever, right? So you enter the criminal justice system even if you literally have done nothing wrong, right? Even if you've just ended up somehow through a bad set of circumstances. And that DNA is never removed from the database, So I think that there is something in that in that willingness to trust government that has been exploited by people who aren't trustworthy. My friend Jamie Boyle, who's Scots, he likes to say that they tried Stalinism in the wrong country, because if they tried Stalinism in Britain, rather than kind of monkey wrenching it and sullenly refusing to go along, even though it kind of took over your life, the Brits would have very efficiently enacted it and then just made sarcastic remarks all the time. Right? It just would have been passing really sarky remarks back and forth up the queue for bread. Other questions? Yeah. Someone who hasn't asked a question.
How do you process all the information coming to you and decide what to put up on Boing Boing?
It's that kind of Malcolm Gladwell blink thing. It sometimes something comes along that just seems like a piece of the puzzle, and you put it on the table and you think, well, maybe it probably goes over there, maybe it's sky, or maybe it's bit of the forest. It's complicated because there's more than one puzzle, and I don't have the boxes, so I don't know what they look like. But you put it on Boing Boing, and then that helps you remember it because you've written it up, and that's a powerfully mnemonic experience. So it helps you come back to it when you need to reference it again. Yeah.
Who do you think has a better lock on our habits and whereabouts and conversations? The state databases or private databases?
I think that it's hard to distinguish them. You know, for example, the credit reporting databases really came into their own after the Watergate scandal, when Congress severely limited FBI's ability to gather information without particularized suspicion. And the major customer, a lot of those consumer reporting agencies were started by ex-spooks, and their major customers are governments. So, you know, I don't know that it's very hard to distinguish the two. I'm sorry, you had a question before?
I was just going to ask how becoming a parent has changed your view of the world.
How's becoming a parent changed my view of the world? Endocrinally. So there's some emotions that you experience with an intensity after having a kid, or I experience with an intensity after having a baby, that I thought I'd experience as intensely as I could before, but hadn't. And they're mostly in kind of in the atavistic end of the scale. So, like, for example, I was pushing the pram across the street, and the light turned, and someone rushed through and nearly hit the pram. And, you know, I've been nearly hit by cars a lot. I used to be a winter cyclist in Toronto, and so, you know, I've ridden I've been through the 100 Years' War and back again. You know, survived the siege of Leningrad, but the feeling I got when that guy nearly ran down my infant daughter in her baby carriage was like nothing I'd ever felt. I literally kind of slapped my pockets, feeling for something I could use to throw through his rear windshield so that he would crash, so that I could dive through the rear windshield, drag him out, and strangle him. I mean, and I've never been in a fight, right? I'm not a violent guy. I've never punched anyone, right? I mean, you know, this was a real moment of kind of atavistic rage. So that's one of the, I think that's kind of the main effect thus far. I mean, it's only been 4 months. Ask me again in 14
and happy
years.
feelings, right?
And lots of happy feelings. Lots of warm, fuzzy, happy, cuddly. You know, she is the world's most powerful unlicensed ketone emitter. The Federal Cuteness Commission keeps calling me up and telling me that she's interfering with the other cuteness devices, and we need to, like, actually put some kind of Faraday cute cage around her.